So that's a real big kick in the teeth, I think, for councils. Councils are on their arse. They've got no money. They are scrambling to get staff in. That's why they've got so many contractors, planners leaving, because it's such a tough job and it's thankless. They can't even take advantage of this increase in fees and reinvest it into the planning department, which I think is really tough for them. And more widely, this is just one issue of not being able to control their income, because planning departments, if you think about it, are one of the biggest earners of a council. Planning application fees is just one part. If you want to learn more about the planning process and how you can unlock value out of any property, click the link below to learn more. So there's been yet another announcement this week with regards to planning. In recent times, there's been a whole heap of announcements that have it's a real purple patch of announcements for the planning system. There were the changes to PD, which have happened earlier in this year. Then the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, which is going to fundamentally change the planning system by way of just kind of increasing house building and getting the planning system moving again. That's the idea behind it anyway. And now there's been an announcement about planning application fees. Planning application fees are now going to rise across the board by 25%. And for major applications, they're going to go up by 35%. So typically, if you're a householder right now, you'd pay £200 roughly, and you're going to be paying £250 now for anything you want to do to your house. So you might be thinking that the increase in fees are now going to be income for the planning department, and now I can get a better service because I'm paying for more. So let's get more planners in there. Let's get our applications decided on time. We can get a better service, so we can get better outcomes. Unfortunately, a big kind of controversy about this is that the government has withdrawn a proposal as part of this application fee rise, whereby planning departments would be able to direct the income within their departments. So that's been taken away. So now the income is going into the bigger pot. So that's a real big kick in the teeth, I think, for councils. Councils are on their arse. They've got no money. They are scrambling to get staff in. That's why they've got so many contractors, planners leaving, because it's such a tough job and it's thankless. They can't even take advantage of this increase in fees and reinvest it into the planning department, which I think is really tough for them. And more widely, this is just one issue of not being able to control their income, because planning departments, if you think about it, are one of the biggest earners of a council. Planning application fees is just one part of it. There's pre-application fees. There's all the contributions that they secure through a planning permission. So things like Section 106 contributions, like affordable housing and apprenticeships and things like that. Then there's also CIL levy, which is the community infrastructure levy, where no matter what floor space you're proposing, any increase has a levy on it. So departments kind of control that. And then there's obviously the kind of actual design aspect, the quality aspect of what they're controlling. So planning departments are the front line, and they are the factor of so many things, of the level of income for a council that doesn't get recognised within a council. They cannot control their income, and it's incredibly frustrating for them. So they're on a shoestring budget. So no matter how frustrated you get and think, I'm paying more, I should be getting a better service. That's fair, you should be, but you're not going to be, unfortunately. That's just the way the government sees it. They seem to think that if they raise the income, income for councils, for planning departments, they don't have the rights to direct it for themselves. It's a bit of a tricky one for councils to work through, and a tricky one for you as applicants to work through as well. When you pay more for something, you expect a better service, but I don't think you're going to be getting that, unfortunately. So that's something you should know. Application fees are going up, but it's not actually going to work out as, in my mind anyway, it's not going to work out as actually getting a better service for yourself. We're going to continue as we are going on, but you're just going to be paying more for it. So the other big announcement is that you have a right to a refund. Now, you actually have a right to a refund already, but you have a right after 6 months. When an application has been in for 26 weeks, when it's been validated for 26 weeks, you have a right to a refund. That is now being reduced to 16 weeks. So you might think that's really good news for you. And I think, to be honest, in terms of getting your decision back quicker, I think it will be good news. However, what I think the actual outcome of this will be is that even though applications take a long time to get determined, planning officers use these long timeframes to try and negotiate not so good schemes to get approval, and they have the time to do that. It might take forever, but that's the kind of strategy they employ. Whereas now, if councils who are already on shoestring budgets cannot control their income, Now they're being threatened with their money getting withdrawn from them after 16 weeks. If they haven't determined it, I think what's going to happen is applications are going to be determined before the 16 weeks, which will look good for the stats. But I think what's actually going to happen is you're going to see a lot more refusals, because quite honestly, when a lot of applications that come in are not acceptable from the outset, and a lot of officers negotiate measures to make them more acceptable so they could turn it into a good development in the end. But this happening now, the 16 weeks, they have no time for negotiation. So what's going to happen, I think, is the application is just going to be refused. Now, linked to this, there's another measure of this announcement that's just happened, is that right now you also have a right to a free go. A free go is when, if you submit an application which you pay for, you get refused. If you submit an application on the same site with a similar description of development, you can resubmit that application within 12 months for free. It's called a free go. That's being taken away. So now I think the onus will be on applicants, so that when you apply, make sure that you put more effort into your application and make sure you think it's going to be correct or it's going to be right from the outset. So with these two measures combined, the removal of the free go and the reduction in the period that you'll have a right to a refund, I think in stats terms it's going to reduce the time taken to determine an application. What might happen is you might get a lot more refusals because there's no time for officers to negotiate with you anymore. I mean, there is time, of course, but they're so overworked. 16 weeks isn't actually that long, actually, unfortunately, for a planning application. But with the free go taken away and the 16 weeks, I think on both ends, hopefully it's going to mean that the applicant is going to put a much better application in, one that they actually think is going to get consent for. It's of no advantage to the applicant anymore to submit an application that they think is going to get refused, and they'll say, oh, we have a free go next time, so we just have a free go. With that being taken away, even though it's not in the whole development cycle, the cost of an application fee might not be that high. I think the simple fact, the mental trigger of them thinking they've got to pay for an application again, I think they're going to focus on the application the first time. And hopefully for officers, that means that even though that 16-week deadline is coming along, hopefully the applications they start getting will actually be better. They'll have higher quality, so they can determine within 16 weeks, keep their income, and at the end of it, you actually get a better development. So that's what could happen. I hope that happens. I hope applications are better, and I hope applications are determined quicker. We'll see what comes out in the wash. So those are the measures that are coming up. 25% increase in fees, but unfortunately planning departments aren't going to be able to direct that income into more resources for their department. But with these other two measures, the removal of the free go for the applicant and also the right to a refund being reduced from 26 weeks to 16 weeks, I'm hoping, and I think what might happen, is that the focus on that one application that someone submits, the quality of the application will be higher, so a much more acceptable form of development, whereas otherwise, knowing that people have a free go, sometimes they kind of test the waters with a bad application, see where they get it, normally gets refused anyway, and then with their free go, they submit something better. So that's kind of an insight into how this new measure might be received within a council and how it kind of works from the inside. But if you want to know more about how councils tick, and if you have a development that you're thinking of investing in and you're unsure about what you think you might get consent for, what developments might be acceptable, what developments might not be acceptable from one authority to the other, then click the link below and you'll start to learn more about how councils work from the inside, and also how to actually assess a property for yourself using the planning system, because a lot of people miss that mark. They don't do this fundamental assessment, and that means that, as I've touched on with these application fee changes, the actual quality of the submission is quite poor, and it leads to a lot of refusals, it leads to a lot of time wasted, and it leads to a lot of money on the applicant being spent to no outcome. So hopefully, if you click the link below, you'll start to learn more, and hopefully if I've done one thing and you avoid spending tens of thousands on an application that you were going to get refused by, and I kind of stop you from doing that, then I've done a good job. So click the link below to learn more, and you'll start to learn more about how councils work from the inside and how you can unlock the development potential of any site in the country.